My name is Tammy McGraw, and I work with Pixton. And before we get into this, I would like to take just a moment to give you some insight into my background. I started my career as an art educator, visual arts teacher, and I taught 10 years, 5 years in middle school and 5 in high school. Over that period of time, I became very interested in educational technology. So I earned my doctorate in ed tech and curriculum and instruction, went on to be a district technology administrator. And I left that to go into educational research and then government, where I was a state ed tech director. I have also worked in that role with people like Jim Davis. We worked together on creating what I think is some pretty spectacular educational content using Garfield and Friends. And so I am now obviously in the private sector working with Pixton. And I give you that background because, over the course of my career, I have spent a lot of time with creative people using creative tools. And I really am very, very proud to work with Pixton, because I think regardless of the role that you find yourself in, whether you're a librarian or a teacher or a tech administrator or what have you, I think hopefully you'll all find something to love here today. So I'm going to jump right in. So what I'm going to do today is really talk to you about Pixton, what Pixton is, why it's unique and effective, and why and how teachers are using it, why they select this tool, and the various ways that they have used it to do some interesting things with their students, and frankly, interesting things for themselves that they use over the course of their teaching. We don't have a ton of time today, so I'm not going to be able to go into the platform and show you every detail. So I'm starting with this high-level overview, and then hopefully as we have time at the end, I do want to go through and give you kind of a closer look at the tool. I will say that if you have a burning desire for a demo after we've gone through this deck and the few things that I can show you, I would be happy to provide a one-on-one for anyone who wishes to do that. Just simply email me at Tammy at Pixton.com, and I'll set that up for you. So what is Pixton? Obviously, at the most simple level, it's a comic creation tool, but I think you'll find that Pixton is much more than that, because we have positioned it along with tools and content and supporting resources to make it really a stellar tool for focusing on essential writing and critical thinking skills. I mean, obviously we have kids, and kids will tell you they love it for a way to be able to create and share their own stories. They don't realize all of the great writing skills perhaps that they are developing, but that's certainly something. They use it to explain things that they're learning about, perhaps abstract concepts. We know that it's a great tool for storyboarding and really improving reading comprehension. And frankly, they just love to create avatars that allow them to have those for various purposes, embedding in presentations or whatever. And while I won't spend a lot of time on this today, I mean, Pixton really excels as a writing tool, but obviously the value of comic creation expands well beyond traditional literacy, and I won't get into that, but just the idea of information literacy and visual literacy, media literacy, and so on. One of the things and one of the reasons I think that classrooms and out-of-school programs around the world use Pixton is because we really have, a stellar collection of curated content. And you're going to see a theme throughout this. I'm going to talk a lot about the content and how it's used, and of course these instructional resources. But the other reason that it is used so widely for, both storytelling or just creative expression, or, for our purposes, really important, demonstrating evidence of learning, is because it does not require you to have artistic talent to be able to use it well. Now, I will say, coming from a visual arts background, if you have artistic talent, that's great too, because these tools really are flexible enough to support varying levels of proficiency when it comes to visual communication. So why Pixton? I mean, obviously there are a lot of creative tools out there. And frankly, when you think about the supplemental tools out there, you know, we only have time for so many, and certainly only so much time to learn tools or use tools with students. So what I'm going to focus on is giving you some of the reasons why we think it is unique and effective, and why people perhaps should choose Pixton. Now, I'm sure it's, you know, anyone who has a creative platform will say that their tools engage and motivate, and that's true here as well. But the only thing I want to say about this is that we have found that it is really effective across all different grade levels and even subgroups. So if you have English language learners, or, you know, it doesn't matter who you are working with, we find that this level of engagement and motivation is sort of across the board, even adults and university students for that matter. Pixton works on any device. It's a web-based application, and essentially all you need is a device and an internet-enabled device, and what we would consider to be a modern web browser. And here you can see students using it on smartphone, tablet, and laptop. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is, even though this is a very sophisticated and in many ways a complex tool, we have tried to make something that is really easy to use. Pixton uses or provides a user interface based on Google's material design framework. So the idea is that you would have this simple and intuitive interactive experience. You know, more importantly, perhaps it provides a consistent experience. So if you're that student using it on a cell phone versus a laptop versus a tablet, you know, you have a consistent experience. And that said, despite all their efforts, sometimes people have questions. And so we have plenty of support for that. On every screen, you're able to access this yellow circle that has a question mark in it, and that takes you to our help center. You can see a screenshot there at the bottom of the screen from an article in that. So if you need help in the center, it can be something as simple as, how do I change someone's facial expression? How do I put a prop in someone's hand? Or, you know, whatever it is, it's that, you know, the how-tos of how do I do something within the platform I want to do. And so you will get that kind of information, and you also get things that are more geared, you know, specifically to how a teacher might use it. You know, how do I put a math symbol in a thought bubble or what have you? You'll notice that the article has very succinctly list 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the things that you can do to delete a classroom in this particular case. But if you were seeing that whole screen and you would scroll down, we actually have comics that walk you through each help article. So, you know, if you need a bit of a visual to show you where to go within the page to do what you're needing to do, you'll be able to see that in the comics that accompany all these articles. I also wanted to mention our YouTube channel. You can see a screenshot from that. One of my never-ending frustrations with YouTube is sometimes if I'm looking for something in particular, I'll watch a video and find out that halfway into it, the product doesn't even look like the version I'm using. So mindful of that, we have tried to keep this you know, very relevant. So recently, we probably took down as many as 50 videos that for whatever reason were not showing exactly what your experience would be if you're using Pixton right now. So these are updated, and I will tell you we've got several more updates coming very soon. Ease of use, of course, is important, but probably even more important for us is to take it a step further to say, what are we doing with regard to accessibility? And in this case, I mean, you obviously see some large screen controls. We provide support for screen readers and so on. I want to point out one particular feature here. You'll notice on the screen there is some grayed out text that says, what am I saying? We use these grayed out prompts, if you will, to give the student some idea of what am I supposed to do here. So you can literally type in your text, what am I saying in your speech, or you can drop that down and choose a whisper or shout or thought bubble. And so they can type that. The part that's being circled in red there, if you can see, is a microphone. And essentially what this will allow you to do is use our speech to text feature. So a student who isn't particularly good at typing or doesn't choose to type or perhaps cannot type for whatever reason could click on that and record what the text would be there. I will also say, just generally speaking, in terms of accessibility of the entire site, we do conform to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines and WCAG 2.1, and we are at the AA level. So for those of you who are interested in the accessibility aspects of the product. So as I said, I want to talk a good bit about content today. As I said, it's recurring in all that we do, because I think that really is the key that takes this from a good product to a great product. Once you get into the content, you'll see there is an extensive library of backgrounds, characters, outfits, facial expressions, poses, props, and so forth. With regard to skin color, there is a broad range from which to choose in creating characters, hairstyles, and clothings, and options such as wheelchairs or even hearing aids. So if you have a student who wears a hearing aid, they have options to choose one that represents what they themselves might wear. Critically important here is that we provide educators with the ability to opt in for age-appropriate content. So, for example, if you want to have options for content such as non-binary gender, or you want to have content that represents or includes weapons or represents conflict, faith, religion, even things like smoking, and even somewhat revealing clothing. So like if you want to not have swimsuits or whatever, or that sort of thing, you can avoid content like that, and that is an option when you set up your classes. I also want to talk about, and culturally relevant, this is something that we hear over and over and over, why teachers like this product, because it really lends itself to allowing students to create comics that look like them and reflect their culture and values. And of course, as they create and share their comics with their classmates, we find, and teachers have reported to this, that this really helps deepen their understanding of other cultures. To further support this, we've created content packs that sort of aggregate, backgrounds, characters, props, and so on, that make it easier for students. So, for example, we have a content pack on the 5 pillars of Islam, where you can find a content pack on Italian American heritage or Native American heritage or what have you. And it just makes it easier to assemble the assets they need to create these culturally relevant stories. So beyond teachers having control of the type of content that students access, I want to emphasize that Pixton really prioritizes safety and security. Pixton was certified by iKeepSafe to be compliant with federal and state privacy laws, and you can see the badges here. And I'll also note that Pixton is a signatory on the Student Privacy Pledge. For those of you who are not familiar with that, it's an organization that there's probably 300 or perhaps more than 300 companies who have signed on to this, including companies like Apple and Microsoft. So we also want to bring the whole idea of this being easy into the idea of easy to use within your environment. So we do have single sign-on. So it doesn't matter if, Google, Clever, Microsoft ClassLink. I will say Clever and ClassLink are just being newly implemented, but this will allow you to use it easily and effectively within your existing environment. So how are teachers using Pixton? Well, much of what I've talked about thus far is really focused on, activities and how, student focused activities. I do want to point out that it really is a versatile tool for teachers. So we know that teachers are creating comics, again, to explain difficult concepts. They use it to help students understand vocabulary and context, incorporate, authentic language, culture. They use it for cloze activities. So in other words, they create the speech bubbles by omitting words and allowing students to determine the correct word. And, they create comics where they then challenge students to develop their predictive skills by having them predict what comes next in the story, or even inferring what happens between panels. So, there's a lot to that, and we could do a whole session just on how teachers are using that. And one area that I'm particularly, I particularly think is useful is thinking about how teachers are using it in the context of assessment. If any of those things are of particular interest to you, again, if we don't get through all of this today, certainly reach out to me, and I'm happy to walk you through some more specifics on that particular part of it. The front of mind these days is social emotional learning. And we saw during the pandemic just this tremendous interest in Pixton, and not just because teachers were looking for something that's fun and engaging for kids to do and work well in virtual environments, but they were also wrestling with this idea of needing something that's very effective for SEL. To support this, we have developed some lesson ideas, and I'll show you some samples of that a bit later. But within the lessons, they are aligned to various standards and framework. The SEL lessons, as you can see here, are aligned to the CASTLE framework. So if you're looking for something on self-management or relationship skills or what have you, you'll be able to find a lesson idea around that. Again, we know from what we hear from our teachers who are using this, that this is just a wonderful way to enable students to show what they know. And we know that, in general, the organization and the sequencing involved in creating comics provide a wonderful way to take a peek into where students' understanding might fall apart. So, it gives us insight that we might not have in other ways, or it gives us a lot of insight into how, what instructional adjustments need to be made. And so we find from teachers, they really love the fact that kids can create very sophisticated examples to show what they understand about a particular topic or subject. Also, I want to point out that this really isn't limited to just, a particular subject or grade level. We find this is true regardless of what age or grade level subject area is being explored. Before I move on from the slide, I just want to point out in this particular thing, you'll notice in the first panel that's with the goldfish, you can see there that we support math symbols. So if you need to add a formula, in this case, there's pi, pi in there, you can easily type that in. So those things are easily done. Because we don't have lots of time to go into all this, we've put together a couple of handouts that you will be able to access from the sponsor room. And I just will very quickly tell you what these are. This first comic really shows you the various ways you can take a single content pack within Pixton to create comics. So in this case, this is the volcano content pack, and you can go through and download and read all of those examples of how it's being used. The second document shows how Pixton supports writing. And in the table, you will see some, these are some lesson ideas. And what they're showing is how they support things like, or how they fit, I guess, within the context of the writing process, the Common Core types of writing, the 6+1 trait writing model, or even the Writer's Workshop model. So anyway, those are available to you. You can download those if you'd like. Another thing that I am really excited about that we're doing these days is focusing on how we can provide essential support for the core curriculum. We know teachers don't have time for lots of supplemental tools, and what we don't want to see is that comics are something that comic creation is used just as a reward every now and again because kids need something fun to do, or I'll use it a couple of times a year. What we'd like to see is for people to understand that this is a powerful tool that can improve those essential skills, and it can be used frequently and with great results, particularly in the context of the core curriculum. So what you're seeing here is just some examples of our content packs and some of the programs that these align to. So, for example, if you look at Bud Not Buddy, which has the Wonders, McGraw-Hill Wonders logo above that, it is used at grade 5 in the Wonders program. If you go to Wit and Wisdom, they'll use that at grade 6. If you're using Study Sync, then you might use the Hunger Games, and you see that there, or Wrinkle in Time, and so on. The idea is around these content packs, they're really two basic types. So we have literature-related, book-related content packs. So in this case, you're looking at Bud Not Buddy, A Wrinkle in Time, and Hunger Games. And we also have thematic packs. This pack that's on this screen is July 4th, and that works with Amplifies TKLA in their study of presidents and American symbols. So whether you're using a theme or a particular book, there is content that supports that. Now, we could spend an entire day going over this collection of instructional resources, and I am going to go in live and show you a couple of things, but what I'd like to do is just give you a broad overview of what's here, and then we'll dig into some of the particulars. You'll notice there's a simple machines here. That is one of the lesson ideas that I've talked about, and you'll notice that this has it has a sample comic. It has basically a lesson or an abbreviated lesson plan, and you will see that it lists these standards, in fact, links out to the standards or the framework that is relevant. So this particular lesson is aligned to the Common Core State Standards, ELA standards, and the Next Generation Science Standards. We have printables, and you'll see here a character map, but we have graphic organizers. You'll see a certificate on this page. All of these kinds of things are available that you can print out. I will tell you that the printables are going to be growing quite a bit. We have several of those that we're getting ready to put up, so that there'll be more there. We have story starters, and I'll take you into one of those shortly. We have Comic School, which is a great way to start if someone doesn't really have a lot of experience or understanding of how to create a great comic, how to work in this medium. We have a rubric, an interactive rubric, which I'll show you. And so you've heard a lot from me on this. I want to take just a moment to play a short video that gives you a teacher perspective. And after we go through this, I will then go in and give you a deeper dive on some of the things that we've talked about.
Hi, my name's Tim Smythe. I am a high school social studies teacher. I do a lot of work with comics in education for students to help find their own voice and to share their stories in a powerful, meaningful, and engaging way. I run a website called teachingwithcomics.com where I share a lot of lessons, particularly with using Pixton, so students can create their own comics. I also work with an after-school program with elementary school students, and we use a lot of comics to help students learn to read, but again, also to make them feel empowered. So I'll share one lesson that we do with using Pixton. So we talk about fairy tales as a reflection of who we are as a society. And I have my students create fairy tales with a modern twist in a comic format. And what students have shared with me has been so powerful. It's about identity issues, issues about race, issues about things that they're worried about that they normally wouldn't feel comfortable sharing with me. And so as a high school teacher, when I give the students permission to play, we know how important that is at elementary level with a comic and to explore. Their true self comes through. And so with Pixton, so here's one student who obviously is a beautiful illustrator. And in fact, she's probably going to go on into the comic book industry. And so that's great. And students can do this. I can't. Pixton takes away that fear. Pixton takes away that fear, that artistic fear. But even for the most gifted drawers, this is a great way to storyboard. This is a great way to get past that fear of the blank page that we're all afraid of when we first see. Pixton allows us to have avatars and backgrounds and things that we can manipulate and make our own. So we don't have to stress about those things. We can focus more on telling our story. And so I've had students write stories about strangers online, and stranger danger, and social media issues, and what you have to be careful about. I've had students write about protesting for civil rights issues. I've had students write about coming out to parents and to community members, and transgender type issues and civil rights issues, and things just about being worried about school. And it really makes them feel empowered. And we also use Pixton to create avatars. To create individual images of who we are as human beings. And just by choosing the accessories, the colors of hair and clothing, the body language that we get to choose in our poses, maybe who we want to be. This is a very fast visual representation of our students that we do in the first week of school. And it really allows me a window into their life in a way that a quick conversation or even a short paragraph or two written response would do. So we use Pixton a lot throughout the course of the year to make comics, to help our students feel part of the story. It takes away a lot of the fears also of formal writing. I mean, certainly we write essays and research papers and things, but we have English language learners, students with dyslexia, students who are autistic. And so creating comics really allows our students to express themselves and their stories in a way that other mediums can't, in a way that formal writing and presentations really just can't all the time. So it's another tool in the toolbox. And like I said, from my own personal experience in after-school programs with disadvantaged students, students from family backgrounds, broken homes in terms of parents being placed in jail, and poverty, it allows me an emotional way to connect with that student who really wouldn't normally feel comfortable sitting next to me and telling me their story. But this comic that they then share with the fellow students in a very powerful way and fun way. I know the topics aren't always fun, but in a very fun way, an engaging way that other things quite often just can't do.
Okay, so just to transition so that we can go more into taking a quick look at a couple of features and also get to the questions. I just wanted to just visually give you sort of an overview of everything that we've talked about here in terms of the features that make Pixton unique and we think effective. I think it's a wonderful thing. I mean, we think it's great, but fortunately for us, we've also had a lot of validation from a number of organizations. You can see some of the awards that we have won here. And these are all recent awards. I will point out also, because I know we've got a lot of librarians with us today, or I think we do, that we are really proud of this designation as one of the best digital tools for teaching and learning from the American Association of School Librarians. I also want to point out that we have a relationship with the New York Public Libraries, and they just do some phenomenal work. If you are a patron, you are able to log on and access Pixton from their website, and they do some really good workshops at their various branches. So young people can come in and they might create alternate endings to novels or create their own superhero stories, or even during Women's History Month, maybe create a comic about trailblazing women. So they do great work, and we are very proud to be a part of that. In terms of validation, I won't go into the weeds with this, but I will tell you that there is sort of a growing body of academic research that points to the effectiveness of Pixton as a learning tool. Some really interesting things in particular with English language learners. Again, if you have an interest in the research, please reach out to me via email, and I'll be happy to send you more information about that. So with that, I am going to, hopefully you are seeing my screen of the live product here. So we don't have a ton of time here, so I'm going to go very quickly and just point out a couple of features that I'd like to show you, beginning with the interactive rubric. So what happens when you click on the interactive rubric, the comic that you've been working on, or frankly, you can access the rubric from the comic. If you have been working on it, you can also click from that screen. But I've opened this up and it's pulling up the last comic that I've worked on. As it turns out, it was the one that I created to share the handout with you. But it puts your comic up here and then allows you to essentially go through this rubric. Now, if you like a traditional rubric, you can go here and just print this out. And this is a standard rubric, like you've seen, dozens of these before. But the idea with the interactive rubric is that the student can scroll down here to get started. So we have looked at the elements of what makes a good comic, starting here with background and focus, and the student will determine how they think they did. Well, I think mine's probably fine, not great, but fine. Once I click on that, it'll give me an exemplar to kind of show what that looks like in terms of making meaning of this criterion. In this case, multiple backgrounds and or focuses are used and generally help convey the writer's ideas. I go on, how did I do with characters and expressions? I think I did really well with that. And of course, you'll read the criterion here and you get the examples. And so I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm just going to go through here and do this. I think my spelling's good. The theme is fine. Sharing, oh yes, I did that well, and so on. Wait a minute, what did I not check? Yeah, okay. And so it will ultimately tell me that overall my comic is fine. It also gives me the completed rubric, and this is the one that I could have printed out, wouldn't have this yellow in it, but what this does is signify what I have selected. And I can print that if I wish. So going back to the app, I want to very quickly go into the lesson ideas and point out that you can filter these by grade level. There's at least 200-300 of these. Objective, if what you're working on is narrative, you can filter them by that or by subject. And so, or you can just scroll through them. So if I wanted to do this lesson on African American spirituals, I could go in there. You can see this is aligned to the C3 framework. If I clicked on that, it would take you out to their site. We provide background information, what you need to know, and lots of times that will include essential vocabulary. I can add this to my comics and further modify it or use it for my students. There are additional resources. In this case, you can go out to the Library of Congress and listen to these recordings of these spirituals. There are content packs that we recommend. I will just quickly click on one of these. So this will give you a sense of what a content pack is, and the curriculum connections we talked about. So if I'm using StudySync, this is applicable to grade 7, unit 3, the Underground Railroad. So, all right, going back now, let's see if I'll show you one more thing. Going into the classrooms, if I went into my first period class, I can go to class photos, and you can see here that all of the students in my class, their avatars will populate this photo. And this happens to be a Google Classroom banner. I can change it to a traditional photo format, and I can also pick a theme for the season. So there's Halloween. If I don't particularly like that collection, I can do that. So anyway, that is Pixton. Now I am going to stop now because we don't have a lot of time. I want to make sure I have time for your questions. So I am stopping, and I'm going to probably do my best to see if I can get some video here. Okay. Hello, everyone. All right, questions. And I am seeing a couple here. Okay, how it is being used as a tool in assessment. There is actually a link, and I will turn sharing back on here shortly and show you, but there is actually a link on that dashboard I was sharing with you that provides a whole description about that. How much, okay, so how much do the packs and themed lessons cost to use? So essentially, we incorporate all of this. If you're a teacher, you have an account, and of course there's different pricing for districts and so on, but $99, you can have as many students as you need. You have all these rich resources and all. But to be very, very specific, if you are interested, if you will email me, I will send you a series of links, including a quote form, so you can give me the particulars and I can tell you exactly what that sort of thing would be. But so let me go back and share my screen very quickly. Hopefully you're seeing that again for the interest in assessment. So again, I won't, in the interest of time, I won't go through and talk about all of this, but I will give you some examples here. We talk about how it supports assessment. We talk about diagnostic assessment and give you a couple of lesson ideas, formative assessment, how teachers are using it and using these lessons, and summative. So if you take a look at that, you should be able to learn more about how we use it for assessment. And again, if I haven't fully answered your question, please, please email me and allow me to share more with you. So let's see if there are more questions. Nope, I think we have it. So I will wait a moment to see if there is any other questions that come in. As I said, I encourage you to go to the sponsor area and download those couple of handouts. I think that will give you a lot more information regarding how it's used in various subject areas. And also, if you will email me, I'd be happy to send you links to specific things that might benefit you as well that we didn't have time to go into today. All right, and I am not seeing any additional questions. So, well, we were able to get through this. I apologize that we had a rocky start, but I hope I have been able to give you some good information. It is really, again, a pleasure to be able to participate in this event. And I thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy weekend to join me for this session. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.